All right. So I am Renee Hall, and I am the advisor to the Self Advocates of Michigan. And today I have the pleasure of having Brian Calley here, who is the president and CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan. We'll call the SBAM going forward. We'll call Self Advocates SAM going forward. Brian and I had the pleasure of working together when he was the lieutenant governor, and he was an amazing champion for disability rights in our state. And so now we're excited that he's here with SBAM. We want to talk a little bit today about the value of small business when it comes to employing persons with disabilities. You know, Sam has been focusing so very hard on getting people with developmental disabilities into competitive integrated employment. And historically, when people with disabilities thought about that, they turned to large companies and corporations, right? Because they're the ones that advertise their DEI initiatives, they advertise their accessibility features and all of that. But really, small businesses have the potential to be great employers for people with disabilities. So, could you talk a little bit about the value of that, please?
Yeah, thanks so much, Renee, for having me in this conversation with you and for all your kind words. It really is such an important part of the employment landscape in Michigan. We're known for big companies and fortunate to have big companies headquartered here, but about half of all employment in Michigan is with small businesses, and they're spread across every single community in the state, every county, every town, every industry that you can think of, and a whole bunch of industries you probably never thought of. So there's a lot of diversity to it, and but also there are employers that tend to be very creative in being flexible with their employees, and it's natural for small businesses to think of their employees as family because, well, a lot of times, literally, employees are family. You know, it's family businesses, and different family members work in it. And so, like the idea of being a welcoming, caring, flexible place is really kind of the norm for small businesses, smaller enterprises, and how they operate. So it's one of the things that we've taken on here at the Small Business Association of Michigan is to really bring to the attention of employers of all sizes, but especially our members, small businesses, that there's this ready, willing, able, talented, capable workforce out there that is oftentimes overlooked. And we really do try to steer totally away from this concept of charity because that's not what we're talking about
Right.
here. We're talking about very, very talented people, people that know how to persevere, people who are determined, people that are creative because they have to be when it
Right.
comes to the types of challenges that come when you have a disability. Perseverance and determination and creativity are a must. Well, I mean, from it, when an employer hears that, it's like, wow, determination, perseverance, creativity sounds like a great set of qualities to have in your workforce. And then when you get beyond that, to share this secret that people with disabilities tend to be longer term employees
Yeah.
as well. And so when an employer makes that upfront investment in training and accommodation, that the payoff over the long term for both the business and for the individual is much higher than what you see in a lot of other employment relationships. So it's just a win across the board. So we want our small businesses to really be thinking not just, hey, I'd be open to hiring a person with a disability, but instead to say, that's exactly the type of workforce that I want. I'm going to go intentionally make it happen. And then I would love for people with disabilities to think about small businesses as well as they're looking at the employment landscape and what their next opportunity might be, to include in that investigation small businesses and hopefully create some long lasting employment relationships where everybody wins.
That would be fantastic. You know, one thing you said, the key word accommodation in your thing, and accommodation is this big scary word, and everybody thinks, oh, all the money, and people with disabilities are nervous to ask for it. But really, most accommodations are under a couple $100s, right? And if you've got
Yeah.
that long-term employee, totally worth a little bit of a investment in that.
Not just that, but I've got a lot of examples that I like to share with our members with small businesses that
Mhm.
oftentimes when you make an accommodation for a person with a disability, it benefits everybody else as well.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it's the sort of things where it's just making a process simpler, more streamlined, more straightforward. That really does benefit the efficiency of the entire organization. So I try to get people to think about it like first of all, making accommodations, as you mentioned, usually it's no big deal. It's a
Right.
very minor thing in terms of cost, if there's any cost at all. But even if there is, it's usually something that benefits everybody, not just the person with a disability. And so when you put those factors together, it makes sense. But here's the other thing too. I've kind of recently taken to this is I've noticed that as a new generation comes into the workforce, you know what employers are having to do? Accommodate the way that the new generation wants to work. And this happens every generation, right?
Right.
I'm part of Gen X. Gen X had a certain way we like to work and how we looked at things, and then millennials had a different way. And employer and now with um, Gen Z, it's a whole different set of expectations of what they're looking for in an employer, in an employer. And so, what do we employers have to do? We have to accommodate that.
Mhm.
So, making an accommodation for a person with a disability is no different than any other
Yeah.
employee. You're making accommodations for everybody
Right.
because
Right. We all need them,
because
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's the thing is that it's I think it'd be you think about like the long term. How will we know when this advocacy work to try to make the world more accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities? How will we know when we've arrived? And I think that we will know when we don't think um, of things like accommodations for people with disabilities to be in a different category than accommodations that we make for everybody else.
Oh, I absolutely love that.
It's
That's
like this
perfect.
idea. It's all the same. Accommodation for a person with a disability. I'd argue that it's in most cases it's it it's easier. I mean, like when you just think about all the things that have to change when you try to just a whole new group of people and a new generation that sees the world totally different. Like everything you have to change for them, and of course employers do it because you have to.
Right.
That's the new workforce. Um, that it's not such a big deal as people make it out to be when it comes to a person with a disability, to make sure that you just have the type of workplace that works for them.
Excellent. Well, I love that. So the whole idea of you and I getting together today was to kind of turn people on to small business, right? People with disabilities, and to let them know that they're amazing employers, amazing places to work, and help some even more people get out into competitive integrated employment. So I really appreciate you being here and giving us some time. We'll have links to your site and some resources underneath this video on the website. So thank you.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you today.
Take care.